Welcome back to the program. So it looks as though the President Trump, Elon Musk spat, bromance, whatever you want to call it, has not completely ended. We thought that maybe today they were going to talk to each other, but apparently President Trump put the kibosh on that. And he said, well, I'm not really ready to talk to Elon right now and probably won't be for a while. So that's where we're at right now. But, I started to look into a whole bunch of different things. And one of the things that I'm seeing is the integration, and let's call it what it is. The integration of Elon Musk and his businesses with the U.S. government is quite extensive. It really truly is. From the Starlink, from, of course, SpaceX, to the fact that most of the space program is pretty much being run by Elon Musk. And so there's a lot there. And I said something the other day about the subsidies and things like that. But the low blow was definitely the Epstein dig, And I'll say this, Little Mystery put out a very good point. If he was so worried about him being a pedophile, well, why would he allow Little X to not only walk with him by himself, but also pick him up and put him on the helicopter? So, clearly you can see that there's nothing going on. Now, the other thing is, the lawyer that was representing Jeffrey Epstein all the way up until the day that he, quote, killed himself, which I think is questionable, he said unequivocally that he was told by Epstein, this lawyer put out on X, that Donald Trump had nothing to do with anything. He was not at the island. He was not part of the files. He was nothing. He actually tried to help him. So it's pretty interesting that he went that low that quickly. And here's what's interesting. Now the Democrats are demanding the documents to be released. Okay? Why? Well, because they think that somehow maybe President Trump has something to do with it, but everything is pointing the other direction, that he does not. And again, it's kind of weird and kind of strange. I said last night, President Trump ought to step up and he ought to file a lawsuit immediately, a defamation libel lawsuit for a huge amount of money. I don't know, $100 million, $200 million, maybe $1 billion even. I mean, look what he did to CBS with the fake video on Heels Up Headboard Harris. He won that case. When he sues you, he's got the goods on you. So if that's the case, President Trump ought to come out and he ought to file a huge defamation lawsuit. But use it as leverage, because our government is pretty vested in Elon Musk's companies. And we would lose quite a bit. We would have to replace it. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but it'd be a setback. And again, with his technology and his companies, it could be very helpful. Okay? So what he ought to do is use it as leverage. He ought to file the lawsuit, and he ought to tell him, look, I'm filing this lawsuit. I'm going to give you 72 hours to back away from you pulling out your contracts with the federal government. And if you do that, I'll drop my lawsuit. So that's something that I thought about today. Obviously, it's good leverage, so we'll see what he does on that. But from everything I can see, President Trump had absolutely nothing to do with Epstein. If anything, he tried to stop Epstein, and we all know that. So what happens with Doge now? Well, I can tell you that Big Balls ain't going nowhere, okay? Big Balls and two others are now permanent members of the Government Accountability Office, and they are still working for Doge, all right? Big Balls is officially a full-time government employee. The first wave of Doge staffers was supposed to be gone after 130 days. Instead, core members of the team have signed on for the long haul. Although Elon Musk has said that he is largely exiting his role as the so-called Department of Government Efficiency Doge leader, at least 3 of his earliest operatives and key lieutenants throughout his government takeover has recently become full-time government employees. Edward Korestein, Luke Farrater, and Ethan Shawotran's employment designations at the General Services Administration, GSA, have been officially converted to full-time from the restricted special government employee classification that limited their time in government to a period of 130 days, according to documents viewed by Wired.com. Quercetin, who has also been known as Big Balls online and previously worked for telecommunications firms known for hiring former black hat hackers, was converted to a full-time employee on May 31st, along with Farrider. Shawatan became full-time on April 10th. So basically you have 3 of the original people from Doge that are still remaining. Those people are now senior leaders of Doge. And Doge, from what I'm understanding, the person who may, and again it's not official yet, who may actually take over for Elon Musk is Scott Bessent. So you're going to have an insider in the Trump administration, and so we're going to see what happens. But Doge isn't going anywhere, okay? And whether the originals leave and they bring in new people, they're going to continue to work Doge. So wanted to kind of point that out right off the bat. Now, this is crazy. It's just insane. Absolutely insane. Get ready to be just shocked by what I'm about to tell you. There's a new company, okay, that is charging $6,000 or $5,999, but $6,000 to advise which human embryos should live and which ones should die. That's right, you heard that correctly. There's a company now that is trying to play God. So sick. Meet Bob and Chuck. Brilliant scientists at a new company have determined that Chuck will outlive Bob, so that Bob may as well be discarded and killed. See how unfathomably twisted that actually is? And yet it's the model for a new pricey business that somehow got glowing reviews from the Wall Street Journal. Nucleus Genomics, in its infinite wisdom, of course, sarcasm put in there, has revealed a $6,000 analysis of embryos which can reveal certain factors like likelihood of age-related diseases, what their height might be, and yes, even their IQ level. It basically allows prospective parents that are using in vitro fertilization, to go window shopping for the, quote, best possible baby. How dystopian and twisted is that? Wow. It's about living a longer, healthier life, Nucleus founder and chief executive Kian Sadaghi told the Journal. Then it says the less desirable embryos are, of course, condemned, frozen, or just tossed aside. Just to get out of the way, IVF is unspeakable evil. Again, this is from the person that's writing this. No matter who supports it, if you simply cannot be a pro-life Christian and think IVF is okay. If life truly begins at conception, teaser, it does, then artificially forcing a bunch of conceptions and using a few of them while discarding and or freezing the rest is nothing short of demonic. It's an attempt to play God, as I said right off the bat, by literally controlling who lives and who dies or has a chance at life. It's absolute disgusting. Then it says, prospective parents using the IVF will soon be able to, quote, rank the embryos using genetic mapping and other information in hopes of extending the longevity of their offspring, according to the 25-year-old entrepreneur behind Nucleus Genomics, a DNA testing and analysis company. Picking and choosing who lives and who gets to be shoved in a freezer or discarded, or worse, based on their physical traits and characteristics, is the literal definition of eugenics. This should be banned 100%. And then it says, this writer can commiserate with any couple struggling to have a child It's a sapping and helpless situation like few others. And yes, more people having more kids is an objectively good thing. But this ends and can never be justified by these means. And discarding God's most vulnerable creations as if they were just last week's Chinese takeout because you think that you might get a better order of General Tao's chicken this week than you did last is the epitome of hubris, according to this writer. By the way, even taking the obvious moral and ethical qualms out of the equation, it's hard not to look at this whole entire thing with a skeptical eye, given the eye-watering price attached to it. The embryos are given probabilities for the likelihood that they will get these chronic conditions, the journal noted. It is up to the parents to decide the qualities most important to them when choosing which embryos to keep. Absolutely disgusting, sickening. This company should be investigated. This company should be shut down. No one is allowed to play God other than God, in my opinion. And this is similar to the death panels in the Affordable or the Unaffordable Careless Act back in the day, right? Sarah Palin said, oh, there's death panels, and the left went, no, there isn't, no, there isn't. Yeah, there were. You know why? Because there was cost-cutting measures and mandates in that bill that basically said, well, you can no longer decide who's going to get that operation to save your life. We're now going to have some government bean counter take a look at everything. They're going to look at the finances, and they're going to look at the books, and they're going to make a decision. If you're 86 years old and have lived a good life, and you need that heart transplant to live, and the 25-year-old has a problem with their heart, guess what? You're not getting it. They're going to give you medication, and they're going to say, bye-bye, have a nice trip, hope you had a good life. They're going to take the money, they're going to take the operation, they're going to give it to the 25-year-old because technically he should live a longer, more fruitful life. That's also evil. It is eugenics. It is playing God. It is just horrifying. And now to think that a company is rolling out this disgusting genomics to make money and decide who lives and who dies, I'm sorry. That is sick and it is twisted. Absolutely twisted. I don't know what else to say other than that. Okay, so let me ask you this. Well, let's see. We'll go to this one first because this one's a little bit better, and we'll end with that one. So, the left has been yelling and screaming, right? They want Kill More Burritos Garcia back. Bring him back. Bring him back. Get him out of the MS-13 hellhole, Cocot prison in El Salvador. Bring him back here. He's just a Maryland dad, right? Well, guess what? The left is going to get their wish, but it's going to have a twist. They've been fighting and yelling and screaming for him to come back to the United States. Well, guess what? He's coming back, and I'm so happy he is. You know why? Because the second he gets here, he's going to be indicted for smuggling people. Deported MS-13 gang member Kill More Burritos Garcia on his way back to the United States to face criminal indictments. That's right, Pam Bondi announced that today. A federal grand jury in Tennessee indicted Kill More Burritos Garcia for, quote, transporting undocumented migrants within the United States. There's an indictment. I'm not going to read the whole thing. A 2-count indictment, which was filed under seal in federal court in Tennessee last month, alleges that Kill More Burritos Garcia, 29, participated in a years-long conspiracy to haul undocumented migrants from Texas into the interior of the country, according to sources briefed on the indictment. Abrego Garcia was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to transport aliens and 1 count of unlawful transportation of undocumented aliens. According to the indictment, Kill More Burritos Garcia and co-conspirators from El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and the United States were trafficking illegal aliens from 2016 until 2025. Kill More Burritos Garcia is an El Salvadorian national who was illegally residing in Maryland. In 2019, an immigration judge ordered him, an alleged member, not an alleged, he is a member of MS-13, removed from the United States. Garcia was initially transported to El Salvador's notorious CCOT prison last month and was transferred to a lower security prison in San Salvador. According to a court filing, Garcia was living at Centro Industrial, which he had his own fully furnished room rather than a prison cell. Wow, imagine that, huh? I guess it was a nice place where they could have margaritas, right? With the idiot Senator O'Holland or whatever his name is from Maryland. After a fierce court battle over Garcia's deportation that went all the way up to the Supreme Court, Garcia is now being transported back to the United States. However, when he gets here, he will be arrested and indicted immediately for trafficking. So, there you go, Democrats. You got your wish. Last story. Another win for us. So, President Trump has told news organizations, if you do not call it the Gulf of America, you can't report the news and you cannot be in the press briefing room. Get out. So what happened? Well, of course, the Associated Press, which are the ones that refused to do it, they filed a lawsuit, right? Well, guess what? That lawsuit eventually just went up to the Supreme Court. I'm sorry, not the Supreme Court, the Federal Appeals Court right before the Supreme Court, and they are banned, gone, out. So let's see. The Federal Appeals Court on Friday allows President Trump to ban the Associated Press from the Oval Office, Air Force One, and yes, Mar-a-Lago. In April, a federal judge granted the Associated Press a preliminary injunction against the Trump White House's ban on their access to the Oval Office in the East Room. In February, President Trump blocked the far-left AP from the Oval Office because they were defying the executive order renaming the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. While traveling to the Super Bowl aboard Air Force One, President Trump not only changed the name of this vast body of water, but also declared February 9, 2025 as the inaugural Gulf of America Day. However, the far-left AP has resisted Trump's executive order. Today, our AP White House reporter was denied access to the Oval Office because the Associated Press recognizes the international body of water of our southern coastline as the Gulf of Mexico, while acknowledging President Donald Trump's order to rename it the Gulf of America, said Associated Press Pentagon correspondent Tara Kopp. The Associated Press filed a lawsuit against the Trump White House, and a federal judge previously sided with the AP. In April, U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden, a Trump appointee, granted the AP's injunction. Wow, what's with these Trump judges acting like liberals? My goodness. Did they get these Trump judges from, the Federalist Society? There's a big problem with the Federalist Society, okay? Big problem, because they're not nearly as conservative. And what did they recommend? Brett Kavanaugh. Who else did they recommend? Amy Coney Barrett. The only one that they did recommend that we got right was Gorsuch. So then it says, the court simply holds that under the First Amendment, if the government opens its doors to some journalists, be it to the Oval Office, the East Room, or elsewhere, it cannot shut those doors to other journalists because of their viewpoints. The Constitution requires no less, Judge McFadden wrote in a 41-page opinion. Judge McFadden clarified that the government can choose which journalists to participate in specific interviews. Today, the court grants that relief, but this injunction does not limit the various permissible reasons the government may have for excluding journalists from limited access events. It does not mandate that all eligible journalists, or indeed any journalists for that matter, be given access to the president or non-public government spaces, in their non-public government spaces. It does not prohibit government officials from freely choosing which journalists to sit down with for an interview or which ones questions that they will answer. And it certainly does not prevent senior officials from publicly expressing their own views, the judge wrote. On Friday, the D.C. Court of Appeals ruled 2-1 that President Trump can indeed ban the AP from the Oval Office. The three-judge panel included the majority, Rao, a Trump judge, Katsas, a Trump judge, and the dissent, of course, was an Obama judge. President Trump celebrated the win, saying, "Big win over the AP today. They refused to state the facts or the truth of the Gulf of America. Fake news," Trump said on Truth Social. So there you go. There's another victory. Lots more happening. Lots more are coming. Trade deals are being discussed right about now. There's going to be a $9 billion rescission request next week that the House is going to vote on. They better damn pass that. That's $9 billion in cuts. It's a start, but it's nowhere near where we got to be. In the next few weeks, they are supposedly, to take up some of the Doge cuts, but we'll see how that works out. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Can't wait to hear all of yours. Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.